Okay, so we are now recording. Welcome to the Elevating Voices in Leadership podcast, brought to you in partnership with Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education. I'm Dr. Gabriela Miramontes, and I will be your host today. With me today are my co-hosts, Dr. Maria Brahman, Dr. Asya Ghazi, Dr. Sonia Sharififard. With us as well will be Ms. Charlotta Green, Ms. Ida Jafari, and Ms. Swellen Schneider. With us, our guest today is Ms. Liane Weintraub. Liane Weintraub is a current doctoral student in Pepperdine University's Global Leadership and Change program. Her background is in journalism, attending USC's Annenberg School. Liane went on to receive her master's in psychology here at Pepperdine University's Graduate School of Education and Psychology. You know, it's pretty sad when I can't even get the words out of the school. And has worked as an on-camera television news reporter, an entrepreneur, and a nonprofit founder organizer. Additionally, she also has a background in the arts and currently serves as president of the LA County Arts Commission. On today's podcast, Liane will be talking about her experience at the 2023 Hawaii International Conference on Education, Hice, where she presented 2 papers. The first, Transformative E-Learning, Design Strategies to Foster Transformational Online Learning, where she gave an overview of Mesereau's transformative learning theory and its applications to current e-learning. The second, which is Self-Talk and Self-Leadership, Advancing a New Application of Goleman's Leadership Model for Counseling College Students, offered a novel way of using Goleman's 6 leadership styles in a one-on-one counseling when individuals are experiencing problematic negative internal self-talk behaviors. So thank you, Liane, for being here today.
My pleasure.
We're so happy to have you and to hear more about your experience.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Happy to be here.
So with that, why don't we jump right in? Tell us a little bit about your experience. I just gave an overview of what your papers were, but tell us a little bit about why you decided to present not 1, but 2 papers and your experience as well.
Well, I didn't really decide that I was going to present 2 papers. I decided to be strategic and submit 2 papers. So my strategy there was thinking that maybe 1 would be accepted, doubling my chances. And then happily, I found out that both were accepted. And my intention was to withdraw one of them because I figured, why present twice? I kind of missed the deadline to withdraw. So then I was stuck presenting twice. And I have to say, it was a daunting kind of prospect because my presentations were on the same day and not that far spaced apart. So it was a little challenging to switch gears, mentally and thematically and all of that. But it wound up being a really good experience, a little bit higher adrenaline than otherwise.
And so tell us a little bit about the topics you selected.
So you read a little, or you shared a little about my background. And even though I have a diverse background, it's not in education per se, but the conference is an educational conference. So I selected 2 pieces of work that I had done that were most, I felt, closely tied to the conference and what might be, of interest to conference organizers or conference attendees. And that's kind of how I arrived at these 2 pieces. So they also, both of them, connect to my areas of interest and my other background, but they're a little bit more education focused. One is on transformative learning. So it's on educational, on adult, learning theory, and ties in that way. And then the other, which is a little more aligned with my psychology background, but I adapted the paper for this conference so that it uses a counseling adaptation for college students specifically. The original paper I wrote was not specific to college students, but I made it a little bit more narrowly focused for this conference.
So, Dr. Brahmi, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I'm curious about what your expectations were and kind of the experience was, contrasting those two in terms of the presentation and the audience reception. Did you get some good conversations, talk with some interesting people? Did it
Definitely.
kind of go how you expected, or were there surprises?
I didn't really know what to expect. I mean, I've attended conferences before, but not academic ones. So I didn't really have a clear expectation in mind. I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. It kind of felt like, a professionally run academic conference, but at the same time, kind of gentle and inviting. It wasn't, I don't know, daunting or off-putting. It was pretty comfortable, I felt like, as a relative newcomer to the academic world, to step into that. So, and yeah, and as far as audience reactions, there were engaging conversations in both of the rooms in which I presented, but also the other presentations I attended by other presenters. There were always, I felt, good questions, ones that weren't intended to put the presenter on the spot, but really just to clarify. So all in all, a pretty, I guess, warm and fuzzy introduction to the world of academic conferences.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I love about this conference personally, is that to me, it has a very supportive feel. Yeah. And so kind of along those lines, did you also find some new content? I mean, in terms of what you learned from other presentations, did you find some interesting sessions to attend?
I did, definitely. There's a wide variety, of different topics, all within the general education kind of focus of the conference. There were lots, and my specific interests more on the psychological end of the spectrum. I felt like there were a lot of offerings that spoke to that. So yeah.
Very cool. Thank you for that. One of the things that Dr. Gabby and I particularly enjoyed was that there were so many Pepperdine colleagues there, and we got to meet with you and others, and that was really nice. Did you know ahead of time that there were going to be a bunch of Pepperdine presenters? Did that kind of, or was that a little bit of a surprise?
No, I knew of two others because they are in my cohort. So there are people that I know, and I was aware that they would be attending and presenting. So that was nice. But then there were additional Pepperdine presenters and also attendees. And then of course, faculty like yourselves. And it's pretty nice to be in Hawaii and have that kind of a setting to, spend time with each other and, outside of the campus situation.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
So, Liane, what type of presentations did you do? Did you do full-on presentations or poster presentations, or what did you submit for?
I submitted papers, and so I did paper presentations. Both of them were in sessions that had other presenters. So, but in the second one of the other presenters was a no-show. So we wound up, two of us sharing the allotted time. So we had expanded amount of time to present. And in the first session, there were 3 presenters in total. And there was a chair of that session who was already assigned. So that person kind of, I guess, determined the order in which we would present and help troubleshoot any technical issues, which there weren't any significant ones. And it was very relaxed, though, and fairly informal, just in terms of how it flowed. And yeah, so I presented using a PowerPoint that, I just operated off my own laptop and clicked through the various slides and gave an overview of my topic, and then entertain questions.
Did you, were any of the questions out of, what is that I'm trying to ask? So were any of the questions you weren't expecting, or questions that you hadn't thought of, or was it all fairly straightforward, or as far as your topic was concerned?
I don't remember in either of the sessions feeling, thrown for a loop. So, yeah.
Do you feel it's something you're going to do again?
Oh yeah, I've actually done it since. So since Hice, I presented at another conference, kind of had some similarities, but it was definitely different. That one was in Charleston and at the College of Charleston. It was based on arts leadership, so slightly different kind of topic, but also a great experience. I feel like these sorts of presentations, the more you do them, the more kind of comfortable you get doing them, and it hopefully will just kind of become a muscle that I develop.
What else is on the horizon?
I don't have anything specific on the horizon, actually, in terms of academic conferences. Just a few things that I'm trying to decide where will be the best venues or the best conferences to submit to that best align with what the work is and the opportunities for me.
Do you have any recommendations for our listeners as far as anyone interested in presenting at conferences or anything like that?
Well, like I said, I think that it's a skill that can be developed, but it has to be developed by doing it. It's not something that you can kind of train in a vacuum for. You actually have to step into the arena, so to speak, and actually, do it live and in person. And I think that it's a really important skill for any scholar. So I do highly recommend it. I think that Hice, like I said, is a great starter. And there are impediments in terms of travel and expenses and time off and those kinds of things. But if you can get past those hurdles, then any kind of nerves about presenting or worries about, what you'll be presenting, those should not be the elements that hold you back from trying.
So let's talk about the topics a little bit. I know that it's been a while, but what made you choose the two topics that you selected?
So transformative learning theory, of all the learning theories that I've spent time kind of learning about and reading up on, is one that really, really speaks to me just generally. I love the idea. I love everything that's embedded within the theory that Mesereau kind of based it on. This idea that as adults, we encounter what he called a disorienting dilemma. So some situation or piece of information that rattles us in some way, either, subtly or significantly. And that has the ability, under the right circumstances, according to the theory, to prompt us to reevaluate. Because one of the areas that I'm most interested in, sort of broadly speaking, in my work and in my research is polarization, and is the degree to which society, especially American society today, has entrenched itself in some sort of ideology. And so anything that speaks to mechanisms to move people out of their entrenched positions, I think is valuable. So I look at transformative learning theory not only in terms of classroom learning, which is where Mesereau did his research, was in continuing education for adult women. That was in the 1970s, but in applications, social applications today. How do we get adult people who don't feel like changing their minds to, if not reconsider their positions, at least to be open to somebody else's viewpoint? And so that's what drew me to that theory. And then for the purpose of an education conference, I looked at e-learning applications because today, there's such an explosion in online learning and online delivery modalities for different types of learning programs, classes, trainings, whatever they may be. How could those also be transformative? Dr.
Thank you.
Brahman.
Dr.
Yeah.
Brahman?
Thank you so much. And I love, this whole idea that of the kind of the different topics. So many of our students used classroom assignments to create presentations, which is a great way to go. It sounds like yours were originated for the conference itself. Is that right?
No, they didn't.
Oh.
They actually originated with assignments.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of got to the point where I had a number of papers that I felt, were I was proud of. I felt like they were good pieces of work. And the reality is, when we do work in the context of an assignment, usually it's for an audience of one. Sometimes we share a presentation with our cohorts or something like that. But generally speaking, our instructors read them, give us whatever feedback they give us, and then we move on to the next course or the next assignment. And I felt like I had some pieces of work that I thought could use a broader audience. And so then I adapted them for this conference. It's not the exact paper that I turned in, but it's adapted.
Yeah. One thing that I'm thinking as you're talking about this, we haven't really discussed this with our other presenters from this conference or other conferences, but as I'm thinking about it, your understanding of that topic and of the materials from that course and so forth would have to really be deepened by creating a presentation and then, speaking to this to a whole new audience. Did you feel that?
Definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, I love that's kind of a whole nother sort of side benefit of getting more bang for your buck from the assignments that you put together, but then also really deepening your learning and your sort of affinity for the topics that you've already studied and already written about and already kind of developed a relationship with, right?
Definitely, yes.
Yeah, that's so cool. So I'm thinking too, you mentioned another conference in Charleston. Was arts leadership, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So that, I think, brings up another fun, topic for all of us, especially within education, because we're educators of certain disciplines and other this and that and the other thing. We kind of love to have our fingers in so many pies. And many of us have our interests are multidisciplinary. So I think it's cool that you presented at an arts leadership conference. What was the focus of that conference? Did it have a theme or
So, first of all, I definitely fall into that multidisciplinary category. And the conference, arts leadership broadly was really the theme of the conference. It's held in Charleston, and it's the Southeastern Arts Leadership Conference, but it wasn't limited to the Southeast. That's just where it's held. I, along with a couple of colleagues, had done a research project in Dr. Majidi's leadership course, and we interviewed a dozen leaders in the arts. That was I haven't, as you mentioned in your intro, Dr. Gabby, I have a real interest in the arts, and I work professionally in that sector. And so I guess because I live and work and breathe in that world, I kind of led that team in a way. And And we did a dozen interviews, like I said, with different leaders in the arts, and wrote up a paper, a long paper. So that was most definitely one that had to be adapted for the purpose of this conference. But we felt like we had some really substantial findings that, you know, could be written up in a way that they could be of interest in this conference. So we did that. We submitted it. It was accepted. We presented. It was a great experience. First of all, you know, just being in Charleston and being in that environment, and College of Charleston is beautiful and historic, and there was a lot of faculty that attended, not just faculty from College of Charleston, but broadly. It was a heavily sort of academic faculty attended conference, I guess. But one thing that we felt really kind of pleased about was that a couple of the authors whose works we cited in our literature review were presenters and attendees of the conference.
Wow.
So that's something that's kind of fun and unexpected when you're, you know, you're diving deeply into people's work and you're citing their work, and then those people are actually, you know, in your audience, or they're presenting and you're in their audience. So it kind of makes it feel less academic and more real life. I mean, academic, you know, lowercase a. I mean, it's not just sort of like they exist in theory out there. They actually exist as real humans in the world, and you can have a conversation.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love that. And, you know, that's something that Dr. Gabby and I have been talking about quite a bit, what kinds of transformations happen when students present at academic conferences. How does it transform your kind of view of yourself in relation to academia, you know, as being a student and a presenter and someone who attends presentations written by or put together by authors that you have cited. I mean, that's really just such a great description of scholarly communication, where your ideas are out there and the ideas of those that you've cited and read are in the same room.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you talk a little bit about how, you know, if you've thought about it, you know, any sort of personal transformations in terms of how you view yourself within the academic conversation?
I guess, you know, having those types of experiences with other academics or more established academics, but in a collegial way, it just feels kind of reinforcing and validating, in a sense that even though I was there as a student, you know, it felt collegial, and it felt, I guess it's a legitimizing sort of an experience, you know, and it's very nice. We got really strong feedback from our presentation and from the content that we shared. And, you know, we're being encouraged now to submit the paper, which, as I said, has to be heavily adapted or shortened to their journal. So
nice.
with any luck, you know, if we're accepted, then in addition to being able to present at a conference, we'll also, you know, have a journal article, which would be great.
Oh, cool. Congratulations on that.
I'll keep you posted what happens.
Oh yeah. We'll be listening for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So you've shared so much information with us already, Liane, but when you think about the work you've done as far as all the conference presentations, you've gone to 2 so far, but you've presented
2 conferences, 3 presentations, yeah.
3 presentations, right? As you're thinking about, you're about to transition into dissertation.
Yeah.
Is any of the work you did during your presentations and any of the research you've previously done, is that gonna help inform your dissertation process?
For sure. I mean, already what I shared with you a little bit about my take on, you know, Mesereau's transformative learning theory. That theory has definitely informed my approach to polarization and how to kind of try to address it in some way. I mean, that's my ultimate goal, both in dissertation and beyond. So I definitely feel like that work I will take beyond that class assignment, beyond that conference submission, and, you know, continue to develop it. The other paper that I presented at Hice is less tied to my dissertation work, but definitely tied to my kind of what I do in terms of any coaching or one-on-one work that I would do with people, because it focused on this idea of negative self-talk and how to address it. And I feel that it was almost like a breakthrough that I had with Goleman's leadership styles, this idea of 6 different leadership styles. And I had this like idea that not only could these styles be employed with leading others, so in leadership of, you know, organizations or other types of followers, but that they could be applied to self-leadership. And so, like I said, I specifically narrowly focused the paper for the Hice conference on college students because I wanted to make it as education focused as possible. So I chose kind of a setting that felt like it fit into the conference. But I actually think this is a really broadly applicable theory that I have of how this existing theory could be applied. So that's something that I do want to work on. And I'd like to kind of, not necessarily in dissertation, but I'm hoping to do some piloting, I guess, of my concept and see what results I get.
So without giving away too much,
yes,
can you speak a little bit more to what you mean about the 6 styles?
Sure. So, I mean, if you understand, which I think most people do, the concept of self-talk, it's something that we all engage in. It's a sort of uniquely human behavior that we all undergo, in which we speak to ourselves, usually silently, sometimes out loud, but usually silently. There's kind of a running monologue of how we narrate our experiences in the world. And these are really important and useful ways that we navigate everything that we do. We kind of tell ourselves how we see things and how we feel and how we interpret our identity and our worldview. Sometimes these are not positive or constructive ways in which we talk to ourselves. Sometimes, in fact, it goes so far as to be maladaptive or even like a clinical situation. And there is a vast amount of research and techniques that are validated for use with individuals to try to work on that. So cognitive behavioral therapy, for example, works on negative self-talk a lot and offers different strategies to people for how to kind of reframe the way that they see themselves or the way that they see situations in their lives. So, and there are a lot of really great and effective techniques that CBT practitioners can use with clients for that. And what dawned on me was that the way in which we speak to ourselves can actually be seen as a self-leadership tool. And like Goleman, or as Goleman says, not every leadership style is effective for every situation. So given the needs of the situation, a leader needs to choose the most effective style to employ to navigate through the needs of that situation. So my idea is that every individual, as we speak to ourselves internally, we really need to employ the most appropriate self-leadership style to navigate ourselves through. So if we are being extremely harsh with ourselves, for example, we're being authoritative and we're not kind of giving ourselves any grace to take time or to mess up or to have a learning curve, then we're going to be demanding and commanding in a way that possibly could lead to maladaptive behaviors or emotional feeling. Whereas if we were able to reframe that and employ Goleman's coaching style with ourselves and be gentler and kind of give ourselves a bit more time, then we would probably get greater results from ourselves. So that's kind of the very basic idea that I have about applying Goleman internally.
Got it. Wow, that's fascinating for sure. I'm intrigued, if you will, just from a leadership perspective, because we're always talking about that external component, right? What the way leadership is used, and you're right. You can't use a blanket leadership style to address every single theory. That's one of my pet peeves when I teach that class. It's like, everybody's like, I'm a transformational leader. I'm a servant leader. I'm a this. And it's like, that's all great that you can identify those characteristics, but they're not always the most effective. And so how do you kind of maneuver the situation from a leadership perspective? So hearing you speak to that from a intrinsic self perspective, I think is really fascinating. It's also very unique. At least for me, I haven't heard it placed this way. So definitely, hopefully you start publishing in this area, because I would love to track it.
Thank you. I mean, I would like to do that. There is a wealth of literature on self-leadership. That is hardly something that I have, invented, and it's very established. But at least as far as I've seen, I've never yet seen Goleman applied for self-internal leadership. So I would like to continue doing that.
Well, and most self-leadership focuses on like characteristics, right? It focuses on those the elements of leadership as opposed to behavior of leadership.
True. Yes. I mean, there is a fair amount of discussion in terms of self-leadership, of self-talk and internal self-talk, especially the work that's been done on athletes, because athletes tend to have these running monologues, and there's been, some study into what strategies and tools are most effective for athletes, but not with this notion of styles of leadership. It's more like tones of self-talk or strategies in self-talk, but not styles.
Yeah, I've read on the strategies, but and then I think that's what I was alluding to. It's more about those intrinsic characteristics. Like, here's the behaviors, here's some of the things. Visualization comes to mind because I have such a huge affinity to anything that has to do with visualization and the impact, right? But when I think of that, of athletes specifically, that's one of the things that's the first thing that pops into my head. It's this idea of, you visualize where you want to be. Forget those of us that can visualize, but you visualize where, you want to be as a form of overcoming some of those internal barriers, which is part of that monologue.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and what speaks to me with all of this is I have a background in a certification in coaching. And so specifically from the life coach school, and the sort of the whole kind of emphasis of this approach has to do with managing your mind. And it is all sort of self-talk. It's called the self-coaching scholars, but really examining the idea is that your circumstance, you respond to a circumstance with a thought, and then your thoughts create your feelings. So understanding where your thoughts tend to go, and the primitive brain versus the evolved brain, how there's always sort of conflict between the two, because the primitive brain wants to keep you safe and be efficient and not change in any way. So it's just a super fascinating dynamic. You might want to have a look at some of that literature, because it aligns really nicely. But just like Dr. Gabby said, I haven't heard any kind of alignment like you described, either with leadership styles. And that's really going to be so fun. So fun for you to learn about and for us to then learn about from you. That's wonderful.
Thank you. Yes, it was really nice to present the concept at the conference and get some feedback. You know, the session in which I presented that was specifically a counseling session. So everyone else who was presenting and everyone else who was attending was interested in that. So there was a fairly robust conversation around it, and they all seemed really receptive as well.
Awesome. Awesome. So would you have a plan or a thought about a next upcoming project in terms of conference presentation or?
My next upcoming project will be a research study that I've submitted for IRB approval, so I'm awaiting.
Nice.
And I'm excited about it. Hopefully, if all goes smoothly and I get my IRB approval through, then I'm going to do it in May. So,
Oh, nice.
yeah.
Is that part of your dissertation or?
It's not. I mean, it's definitely connected to my area of interest.
Yeah.
And if I were to use it in some way in my dissertation or with my dissertation, it would become either a pilot or, secondary research, but my own secondary research. I just really wanted to try it.
Yeah.
Without the super high stakes of having it be part of my dissertation, because I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know, how it's going to go or how useful my findings will be, but I'm excited about it.
That is so cool. Is this your first direct interaction with IRB?
It is.
Congratulations. Wow.
Very, very interesting thus far. Yeah.
Yeah. Never dull moment with IRB.
No. Well, I will say that I got a cycle one, a series of questions back.
Yep.
And every single question, because I thought I had submitted, a very comprehensive and well thought through application. But every question that was asked for follow-up or for clarification was totally valid and made me think more deeply about my methods and methodologies.
Oh, very cool. Very cool. Wow, that's actually how IRB is supposed to work.
Who knew?
Nice. Oh, well, congratulations on that. That's very fun.
Yeah, exciting.
Yeah.
So with that said, for the rest of the panel, are there any questions that any of you have for Liane before we close? Nope. Alrighty. Well, with that, Liane, just wanted to say thank you for being on the podcast. We really appreciated having you here, answering all our questions, and we look forward to your research. It sounds amazing and interesting, and we are looking forward to reading more on it. I took notes, so I'm gonna be like, hey, Liane, where are you? And wanting to see more of your scholarly work. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. And so with that, thank you all for joining us. If you've enjoyed today's session, please remember to click the subscribe button. Have a wonderful week, and we'll see you all next time.